I love the changing of the seasons, and my imprint for those comes from growing up in New England. So you'll find that my references have to do with apples and cider and things that don't grow around here. And yet, we're tuned to them no matter where we are. So I wanted to talk today about drawing in, about going within. You may have noticed, I'm sure you have, that the days are shorter. And that time when you're supposed to be thinking about what's for dinner comes surprisingly soon. And that thing that you were going to do that required daylight that takes place outside, it has to wait till tomorrow. Anybody have that kind of experience over the past few weeks? Yeah. I know we changed our clocks a while ago, and I'm still adjusting. And I act like it's a surprise every year, even though obviously it happens every year. So, there's this wonderful opportunity to go within, presented as a decrease in opportunities to go out there and be busy doing things out there. And for those of us who have a real love of being outside and doing things out there, and maybe even an attachment to it, we may or may not adjust to this change really willingly, and yet it still happens. So what it provides, obviously, is an opportunity to spend more time in stillness, to spend more time in darkness, to spend more time in quietude. And it is something that naturally pushes us in that direction. That's also an invitation. Because it's more than just a condition that is seemingly imposed upon us from the outside. It's connected with an inner instinct that we have to slow down and to go within. One of the favorite things that I like to do around this time of year, and I just started to mention it, is to look at what nature is doing. And my favorite set of metaphors for really appreciating this time of year, of slowing down and going within, have to do with farming. I grew up next to a farm and helped out a great deal on that farm, doing things like picking apples in fall and watching cider be made. And in the spring, when the sap was running, I would help carry buckets of sap to the sugar house, to the tank that went on the back of the tractor to the sugar house to be made into maple syrup. And truly, I was so little, I wasn't even tall enough to get those buckets off the ground, but they let me try. So there is a bit of my upbringing that has this Norman Rockwell kind of quality, which I so appreciate. Because I remember looking out the living room window on those snowy spring nights, and I could see the sugar house with the sparks and the smoke coming up out of the top. So I'm really attuned to those seasons. And as you know, we're not in Vermont right now. And I am sure that most of you have been all over the continent, or even more so in the course of your life so far. I have been further south, and further north, and further west, and further east. And yet there is some attunement that sticks with me. So this farming metaphor is very interesting. Because what happens at this time of year, and here we are on the verge of what we call Thanksgiving, and so many traditions throughout time in the Western Hemisphere, okay, I'll give you that, are looking at harvests. We have essentially plucked what we can from the trees. We have dug what we can from the ground. We have long since picked what came off the vines. The first frost has taken place. The season of growing and producing fruit that we just passed through is complete. And what's left are bare branches. And what's left are fields that have these dry, crackly vines in them, and so on. You get the picture, right? So what's left is the remainder of that season that's no longer going to bear fruit. It's done that already. And we have harvested it with appreciation and gratitude and celebration. And we've enjoyed some right now and we put some by for later, so to speak. What's left is to till what's there under in the field. Okay? The trees do their own thing. They know. They go within. The roots grow deeper and they go through their own winter. But the fields are something that we plow under, we till under. Can you imagine that there's something in your life right now that you might be tilling under? Can you imagine that there's something in your life right now that's complete? And you've witnessed the harvest of that. You've witnessed the outcome of it. Maybe it was a business venture. Maybe it was a venture into a certain type of relationship or partnership. Maybe it was a venture to go to a different place or try a new hobby or who knows what. Maybe it was a different arrangement of the furniture in your home. But let's just say that something has reached completion in your life. And you have gotten all that you can from it. And now it's time to give thanks and to bless it for all that it has been. And release it and turn what remains back into the soil to become something new. To be fertilizer for the springtime. So you're with me on that metaphor? Okay. So whatever it is, we know that it's natural and that it's perfect and that it's good. And that we'll have the opportunity to plant again. And that in the spring the soil will be rich. And it will be largely due to what we are willing to release and acknowledge as complete and till under. Right? So here's what we're moving into right now. This is a period of rest. This is a period of rest. And here we are in the place of eternal summer, right? And yet we have to rest as well. We can't say, well, I don't live where there's snow, so I'm just going to keep going. We can't say, I don't live where there are cycles, because there are. They're just different. And Frida might know more about them because she's an environmental biologist who lives here. I just know all about things like apples and maple syrup and whatnot, and they work well for me. So here we are. Nonetheless, though we haven't had the highest snowfall in the history of recorded snowfalls, we've had tremendous wind. We've had darkness coming early, nonetheless. We've had rain. And we've had perhaps circumstances in our lives that parallel all of this and say, it's time to slow down a little bit. It's time to be willing to give thanks and bless and let go of some things. It's time to turn them in. And it's time to rest. Everything in nature teaches us that we need to have that rest. That rest. Now, I don't know about you, but I have some really funny examples of being helped with this slowing down business. Yes, I see some laughter. Speeding tickets? Anyone? Not lately, by the way. I'm over that. Any moment, any period in our lives where we're like, no, I'm just going to push a little harder, go a little faster. I'm going to get more out of my day. I refuse to admit that it's getting shorter. I refuse to admit that it's getting darker sooner. I refuse to admit that dinner is just blown. Whatever it is. I remember fighting that. Because I was so much more in my ego, and I would just go faster. I would just stack things up. I would multitask. There was no way I was going to admit that it was time to slow down. So one example was speeding tickets. The other was getting sick. Now, by the way, there are a host of things that we do to get this slowdown happening that are more acceptable. So one of them might be, for example, that you would really just love a day off. And yet everything in your belief system says, I can't do that. So your body might say, well, we can find a way for you to have. And your temperature shoots up, Or maybe you get a migraine and you can't see, And you're like, oh, clear my calendar. You might step out the door and have a condition develop in a joint or something that says, you need to go back inside. I know, I've done a few of these, and I'm sure that you have as well. There are culturally and socially acceptable ways to slow down and take time off. If you're not ready to just say, you know what, I've taken a mental health day, and I'm sure the world will not come to an end. In fact, it'll be better off after I've done it. There are all kinds of scenarios, actually, where we're invited to slow down and pause. So here, I'm not talking about the harvest, I'm not talking about the tilling, I'm talking about the rest part, which is the next part of the cycle. Why? Because letting go involves trust. And trust makes room for great and unexpected things to happen. And all of that makes room for rest and restoration and renewal. And we get to fully let go. Now, even my brother is a farmer in upstate New York, and because he was so inspired by living next to one and helping that he made it his own. They don't start right away looking at what they're going to plant and order and get started for the next year. The first thing when they have this time of year is a big, long sigh. And they're like, thank God we got snowed in. You know, we have a wood stove and we've got movies and we've got whatnot. They say, thank goodness. And they take a break. They know they need to take a breather. And so they rest. And they rest forever. Do you know how to do that still? Have you given yourself permission lately to rest? Because if you're in the part of the cycle that is the rest, before the rest happens, shall we say, pun intended, then it's important to do that fully. And that involves letting go. It involves trust. It does not involve planning. It does not involve strategizing. It involves very little. There's a Buddhist saying, do without doing, and everything gets done. And we know from A Course in Miracles that nothing real can be destroyed. So whatever we're letting go of, it's not real. And we know that what is real is timeless. The rest of that quote is that nothing real can be destroyed, nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. It'd be wonderful to just steep in the peace of God. We can do that. It's not hard to find. It just requires a choice from us to be still and know. So there's this big, vast, quiet, pregnant thing of possibility that we get to fall into, that we get to steep in at this time of year. And if we trust and we let go and we're willing, what happens then is new inspiration comes, new visions, new dreams, maybe reruns of dreams that we haven't yet realized. If they come up again, they are abiding. If those dreams resurface, that's because they're still real for us. So we have this beautiful opportunity in this resting and trusting to know that when it's time, we'll start to get ideas. We'll start to point in a certain direction. We'll start to feel the quickening. We'll start to prepare. And pretty soon, we'll see signs of spring. And there we will be with our experience of renewal and clarity and new direction to step into life at the right time, really ready to rock and roll, really ready to become that thing, to do that thing, to experience that thing. So even though it might seem like a bit of an inconvenience to have to be willing to slow down and shift gears, it is a gift. It is an invitation. It's a permission slip from the universe. Everyone and everything needs time to rest, and time to renew, and time to restore. And what comes out of that is so great. So one way we can do that is to acknowledge that we're in this thing we call winter, and do it sort of on a grand scale during season down here. Another way that we can look at this is that we can remember this and honor this cycle within the course of any day, any time of year in our lives. Do you have, other than being zonked out as in sleeping, any period of stillness for reflection and renewal in your life? Backing up, is there anything that you might want to bless and release and till under, turn it into fertilizer, recycle it, and make room for the new? That stuff can happen any day. And it's wonderful to give ourselves the opportunity to attune to that nature and build it into our daily lives. And we'll have more flow and less resistance. And we'll tap into more greatness and less of those detours. I have a funny thing I wanted to share with you. I actually, I'm not sure what kind of animal gets the instinct to throw things out. But we had this assignment over the past 10 weeks of Prosperity Plus to clean 15 minutes a day. And I'll tell you, I made a Google Calendar reminder for myself. I had this cute little reminder on my desktop and on my phone that said, clean out. And I even picked a time, and it never happened. And I got so busy deleting all the emails and all the reminder messages, it took about 15 minutes a day. And I kept thinking, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it finally did. I was so excited. And then all I wanted to do was just keep, I have other areas to attack, as it were. But it felt so free to go through certain areas of, stored belongings, whatever, and say, you know what? That served me well, but I can't remember the last time I used it. And it was so easy to let it go when the moment was right. So easy to let it go. And so I did it knowing that I was physically cleaning out and clearing out, that I was giving thanks and blessing for whatever that was, and I was releasing it and making room for something new. And then this feeling of openness and simplicity and ease came over me. And this feeling that something great is about to happen. And I'm ready. So I invite you to think about all of that in terms of wherever you are in your life right now. What is it that you're celebrating in the way of harvests today? What is it that you're complete with? What is it, as Meg Wheatley has said, has reached a state of equilibrium and used up, exhausted all of the possibilities, and so it's complete? What is it that's beautifully falling apart, showing you that it's complete? Bless it. Bless it. Give thanks for all of the gifts and all of the goodness that it brought. And let it go. And till it under. And do a little dance. Because in doing that, you make room for the new. And then rest. Indulge in nothingness. Be still and know. And know that when the vision of that newness comes, when that inspiration comes, you'll recognize it. Not to worry, it'll come at the perfect time, in the perfect way. And trust it and respond to it then. And see what happens.